This is Inside Access. I'm Connor Gregoire, sports editor of The Hoya. With me is Dave Baran, our men's and women's track and field beat writer. This week we're going to be talking about a variety of subjects. Dave, let's start with the women's distance medley relay. This is historically one of Georgetown's proudest features of their program. So what's the latest in 2011 with them?
Great. Well, yeah, if you've been following the women's track and field program here at Georgetown, you know they're one of the top middle distance programs in the country, and that's really reflected that in the distance medley, which it starts off with a 1,200 meter, then it moves to a 400 leg, 800 meter followed by a mile. So it really combines a lot of the distance events together. Last year, Georgetown was able to finish third at the Indoor National Championships. It's only run during the indoor season. However, most of the Hoyas that are on last year's team that set the school record are not going to be participating this season's indoor. So we got a first look at the DMR this past weekend up at the Armory for the New Balance Collegiate Invite. Leading off for the Hoyas was junior Lauren Bourdoon. She looked strong in the 1,200. Then we had Deidre Sanders on the 400. She's been one of the more consistent Hoya sprinters and will maybe fill that role further in the season. Chelsea Cox was on the 800 meter leg. She ran a great split of 2:06.
Freshman, right?
Yeah, freshman. So that was a great time for her. Big PR as well in the event. And then sophomore Rachel Schneider, who's the only returnee from last year. Last year she was running the 800 meter leg. She's now the anchor, and she had a big PR in the event as well. She ran 4:41. So the Hoyas overall did really solid. They came away 8th place in the event. A lot of really good teams up there. They ran 11:14, so that puts them at around 11th place right now on the list for sending the quartet to nationals.
Okay.
Maybe not going to make it just on that time alone. They're probably going to have to run a little bit faster later in the season. They should have a chance at the Big East meet coming up here in 2 weeks. Connecticut's got a pretty good team, and look for Villanova to probably line up a solid team as well. So that's another opportunity for them.
Okay. Now we're going to move to a men's runner who's kind of been flying under the radar, is the way you put it. Brian Hankey. How's he doing this season?
Sure. Brian Hankey's he's a sophomore. And, you know, the sophomore class for at least the middle distance and distance program at Georgetown is really the future of the program here. You have some really top recruits like Andrew Springer, one of the top milers in the country when he was a senior in high school. Guys like Dylan Sorensen, Bobby Peavy, Ben Furch, where they really kind of overlooked Brian Hankey when he might have came in. I mean, a talented athlete, but not one of the marquee recruits. And last year, I mean, he struggled at times, somewhat consistent performer, but this year he's really just made leaps and bounds. Set PRs 2 weekends ago at Penn State in the 1,000, and this weekend he came back in the 800 and ran a 151, which is a big PR for him as well. So he's making leaps and bounds. You still won't find him at the very top of the results of the list at this point in the season, but if he keeps improving like he can, you might look for him to score some big points at the Big East. And especially in the next 2 years, I mean, the sky's really the limit, and that's something that we really would not have said a year ago.
Right. Now, something we might have said about a junior Theon O'Connor would have been the other flip side of the coin. He's been kind of a big disappointment on the hilltop.
Yeah. I mean, Theon came in as a really big recruit. From Jamaica, ran 150 in high school in the 800, was really one of the top recruits for his class. And he's been a pretty solid, consistent performer over the past 2 years, but hasn't really, exploded on the hilltop like some thought he might. Running around 149s or so in 800, sometimes 150. I mean, he's got a lot of talent still. This weekend, he's been training with Toby Ohm a lot in practice, as Toby's been moving up to the 800. Been doing some really good workouts from what I've heard. Looked really smooth, so they're just really looking for him to put together on the track. He had a chance this past weekend, and it just didn't really come together. He kind of pressed too hard. The things that the coaches say about Theon is that, he likes to be out in front and really controlling the race, and what they're trying to teach him is, to sit back, go with the pack, let things develop in the race, and just kind of use that to his advantage. That didn't work out this past weekend. I ran 153, finished 9th, which I know is a big disappointment. The coaching staff really just still thinks he has a lot of upside, or still being very patient, thinking that, they say he's in the best shape that they've ever seen him in. So hopefully we can see that translate in 2 weeks at Big East. It's a learning curve. Hopefully that he can bounce back. The Hoyas could really use a boost from his talent.
So you think it's more of a mental thing than a physical thing? I mean, I think people might think of track as a purely physical sport.
Sure.
But what do you think it is?
Well, there's a lot of tactics in racing. I mean, especially the 800 is a very tactical race. You only And on indoor, you only have 4 laps to work with. On the outdoor, you have 2 laps. So it's really a lot about positioning, about where you are, when you can make your move. So not necessarily the person who's in the best shape might not always come out on top, especially in that race where there's not a lot of distance to run with. So I think Theon's still figuring some things out, and I mean he's a big time athlete. I mean he ran 150 in high school, and I think he has that talent. He's looked in good shape. So yeah, I think the coaches are really just stretching, just trying to figure out the actual tactical part of the race.
In terms of some graduates who are making noise now that they've left Georgetown, Andrew Bumbalough, who was one of the greatest runners of recent memory to come through Georgetown's program, he's doing really well now that he's graduated. What's he done recently?
Yeah, well, Bumby, as they like to call him, Andrew Bumbalough, he's made a lot of noise here just in the past week. Really, his first debut race, he's out racing with Jerry Schumacher's group out in Portland, Oregon, signed with Nike to be a professional athlete out there. And this was his first real big race was at the USA Cross Country Championships this past weekend, and Bumby did fantastic. Finished second, ran a time of 35:52 over the 12K course. And for USA Cross Country Championships, I mean that's anyone can enter. That's the professional. That's the top of the top. Not as big of an event as the track season, but we'll look for him to really do some great things in the track as well. I mean this is a huge PR for him, a really great step for Bumby, and this is really what he wants to do, and he's really committing himself to it. So it'll be interesting to see kind of where it goes from here. As one of our own athletes here turns out to be maybe one of the best professional athletes that the program's ever put out.